Hello and welcome to 24 panels per second. This is the comic book, movie, and TV podcast from the Comic Crush. I am your host, Paul. Joining me this evening is Liz. Hello, Liz.
Hello.
How you doing?
Yep, doing well.
It's good to have you back on. We're going to be doing Daredevil Born Again Season 2, Episodes 2 to 4 this week, and then hopefully in a few weeks we'll be back for episodes 5 to 8, which will be the end of the show, I think, isn't it? That's
I think so. Yeah, I
the
think it's going to be
conclusion.
8 episodes.
I'm not sure how they're spacing those out. Let's say, yeah, we won't be back on your screens for another 3 weeks. I'm sure you're disappointed. I know Liz is. But yeah, we're going to talk about the exciting happenings in episode 2 to 4 tonight. I mean, so much packed into these episodes, Liz.
I actually waited to watch them all back to back, like between sort of yesterday and the day before, so that I'll be fresh in my head. And I mean, it's just they're all bangers. It's been like a really exciting half a season so far.
But yeah, they really kind of, I think they're really putting out the stops action wise. And it kind of shows that within that sort of 50 minutes or an hour, you only really need one or two kind of good action sequences to give you an exciting show. But also, I'm quite impressed with their kind of plotting and stuff in this season. I found with episode 2, that one was kind of that showed some of the stuff that some of the issues I had with season 1, which was this kind of, despite the fact that it is tightly plotted, there were these kind of loosey. It just felt a bit meandering in places in the way it was edited.
Like, what are some of the examples of that?
I can't really think of anything. I just found it sort of jumping from plot point to plot point, not as smooth as episode 1 and then episodes 3 and 4, although there was still a bit of that. There's something about the way the show's put together and the way it moves around from plot point to plot point that I'm not always kind of fully on board with, or I find sometimes a bit jarring. And you know what I think it is? I think in a way it's trying to emulate the way comics are laid out. Like, you can have really big jumps in comics, and you've kind of just got to keep up. But here it doesn't work so well. However, I mean, those weren't necessarily to an overriding detriment for the episodes, because as a whole, like, these 3 episodes, pack so much in and so much good stuff is happening.
I mean, I have to say, I didn't really feel I didn't feel that. No, I actually thought, like, was thinking to myself that I thought a lot of the transitions were really neat.
Okay.
In the series, and very intentional and clever.
Right, okay.
Yeah, I really, I really liked the directing, throughout this season so far.
I think we're still on. Is it still Benson and Moorhead for all 3 of these?
I'm not sure if they did all 3.
Because I'm assuming it's. I assume that they're doing one half of the season, and then another director will come in for episodes sort of 5 to 8 or 4 to 8. I just didn't keep enough of an eye on the credits this time. So.
I didn't either, to be fair. So,
and also I had terrible technical problems with Disney Plus, trying to get it to sort of be stable. And it might just be my crappy internet, but that drove me mad. There were some plot points I was trying to sort of wind back across, and it just wouldn't do it.
Right. Okay. Yeah. No, I didn't have any issues, but.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, still dealing with the fallout from the Northern Star in episode 2, and Um, more especially the events of at the end of episode 1, where Cherry's having in the middle of a kind of cardiac event. Bullseye has just killed all the AVTF officers in the apartment, and Daredevil has to kind of listen at a safe distance as to what's really going on. But also you have that sinister thing where Bullseye comes to Matt's old church looking for Matt's mum, which is quite kind of. And Sister Maggie, we haven't seen since
season 3.
Yeah. Season 3, yeah. So a long time, but we don't.
And they make a point that she's like not. You know, it seems unlikely she's going to be in it. They make a point that she's on a sabbatical overseas.
And we don't really find out what he's necessarily up to straight away, which I thought was a good kind of delay in the reveal. Like I quite like that. I quite like the tension of that, because it's we do see him again throughout these episodes. We've also got Fisk kind of training for his boxing match, which it seems like an event that's come out of nowhere. I don't remember that being teased at all in the first episode, or
there might have been a mention of it, but I honestly don't really remember it either. But it you know, I mean, there was so much going on in the first episode that, you know, a quick mention of something like that could have passed me by easily. He's training for the boxing match, and he's also trying to find out who has been posting the mocking videos. You know,
I love how that sort of egotism is displayed, but also how it shows the kind of sycophancy of the people following him, because you know you can't mock the mayor, and it's just like, well, of course you can. In any normal society, you should absolutely be able to mock him. it not really be that big of a problem. And I found everyone's reactions to that, and it's weird because Daniel is like, he quite clearly knows it's freaking BB, right?
Oh, he does. Like, 100%. He's very smart. He likes to kind of play off that he's not as smart as he is, but he knows it's BB, and he you know, instead of, you know, bratting her out to Fisk, he's begging her to stop because he has a crush on her, and you know, he doesn't want to have to turn her in.
And Michael Gandolfini put it in a very interesting way recently on the official Daredevil podcast, in which he said, look, that Daniel is loyal to whoever's in front of him. Like, he'll say whatever he needs to say to be kind of loyal to and not necessarily seduce
whoever.
Appeal to whoever's sort of there in front of him. I think with BB, there is that, obviously, that second layer where he's clearly very much in love with her, and very, you know, really wants a relationship there. And I don't quite get it with BB, because on one hand, I feel that she genuinely does like him, but probably not in the way that he wants her to.
Right.
But on the other is like, but is she just using him?
I think both. I think you know, I think she does have a genuine affection for him, but I think her, you know, ulterior motives are very clear. You know, he's feeding her information that she can't otherwise get.
And we've also already had, like, Karen warning her that, you know, I don't want you to end up like your uncle. I've got a feeling that actually what might happen is that they will try to turn Daniel at a certain point. That they'll try and bring him over to the sort of resistance side. I can see that being a big turning point, sort of later on, maybe around episode 6 or 7, or you know, 5. But in that group of episodes, I can kind of see that happening, and I'm not and I'm really kind of not sure that it'll do it because Daniel is a bit like the person that he idolizes. He's a bit like Fisk in that he can kind of manipulate people over to his side and his way of thinking. I again, not
that
really
with like Buck and the sandwich.
Yeah.
Which is a great little moment.
Dog, yeah. And Buck is kind of very inscrutable normally. But that's a nice scene. But also you're left wondering, wait a minute, who's really seducing who? Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
right.
And of course the leaks seem to be coming from Daniel's computer as well, which I
well, because Bibi probably put some kind of bug on it, or or she's just accessed it, while she's been, physically with him.
Yeah, but something's definitely kind of happening. I guess really, if he can figure out who he allows into his personal space that much, he's gonna kind of clog. And of course, we do get a reveal that it is Bibi during the
videos,
the end
propaganda
of one of the videos. Yeah. So, obviously the search is still going on for Sava, like the first mate on the vessel, the Northern Star. And we see the ATVF arresting the restaurant owner, Ariana. And that kind of becomes a very big thing. And we see more kind of
more arrests made,
ATF stuff a bit later on. And just them really cracking down. And the interesting thing is Buck is now trying to convince Fisk, oh, yeah, go ahead. Like, you know who Matt Murdock is. So just
right.
tell people. But Fisk quite plays it even more intelligently, which I really liked.
I did too, yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's like, why wouldn't he? They give you a good reason why he wouldn't. Because they kind of have to explain that. It's like, well, why hasn't he just told the world, Matt Murdock is Daredevil, and they give you a good solid reason and like a very clever, sort of way that he handles it.
And there's already been, I mean, that was very much part of one of the comics, wasn't it, in the Bendis run where he gets outed?
I mean, the Bendis and the Brubaker runs kind of bleed together a little bit for me. Like, I mean, they're both amazing. I can't remember if it was actually the Brubaker part of it where he gets outed. I don't know. But yes, during that stretch.
And of course, you have that great. I always just remember that for the scene where the stilt man turns up at Matt Murdock's office and hands him the stilts. It's just like, yeah, I'm out. If it's you that's been beating the shit out of me all these years, I'm out. And in a way, you like this show obviously won't necessarily allow for that because of where Matt is, being on the run, being constantly in hiding with Karen. But obviously Fisk is getting upset at the videos. He wants them kind of stopped. And there's that sort of horribly sinister scene where he talks to Daniel and shows him one of the videos because they've been trying to keep it from him, knowing what his ego's like.
But at first he shows him like the corpse of like the police chief that his head he exploded.
Is still genuinely one of the more horrible things ever to be shown.
Right. But he was like, basically like reminding him like, yeah, this is who I am. So, you don't want to cross me, And
I feel their relationship kind of sours a little bit there. Didn't you? Like,
I think that for the, I mean, because Daniel, he's idolized Fisk, but I think he in that moment kind of realizes like, oh yeah, I'm also afraid of him.
Yeah. He's getting deeper and deeper in with very, very dangerous people. Right. Buck we see has been incredibly sort of lethal throughout the 2 seasons. and he's just getting more and more dangerous as he goes on. Buck's interesting because he never cracks, and funny enough, in that sandwich scene, Daniel talks to him about the boathouse, or talks to him about training at Herefordshire, which is the SAS training. It's widely acknowledged to be the SAS training ground, and Buck doesn't crack. He doesn't say, "Yeah, I am. I was secret, British Special Boat Service, or SBS, or SAS, or any of that." But of course, just carries on being just as sort of menacing and lethal. And also equally menacing are the AVTF, who then turn up at the hospital to kind of, well, we assume they're there to kill Cherry, but they're kind of warded off by
his fellow police officers.
Yeah, his fellow police officers and retired cops, it seems. There's a few kind of very old, all of which are more than willing to take him on, which I thought was a nice scene. And of course, Cherry's later kind of spirited away. We now don't know where he is, although we are told that he's safe.
Somewhere
right?
safe, yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of kind of use of menace and influence in this episode, and that seemed to be the kind of main theme of the episode is how the sort of players are kind of positioning their power. And I really like the episode for that, because I think all these people are more than well aware of who's doing what and who's who and who they really are, but everyone's having to kind of keep it all suppressed, so they can keep playing this kind of ridiculous game. Yeah, I don't know. It's it was quite an interesting thing. I mean, and
what was the big fight scene in episode 2? Because like like I said, I watched them back to back almost, and so for me it's like kind of hard to remember what exactly happens when.
I'm not sure there was one. Oh no, doesn't it occur right at the end? It's at the end, the big thing, really, isn't it?
Was it a bullseye scene or?
No. So it's where the vigilante task force find Matt and Karen.
Right.
So that was the big build up, and of course, just before that, we had the thing with Soledad and I can never remember her name. The kid who's now going to become the White Tiger.
Oh yeah, I can't remember her name either.
I've got it somewhere in my notes, but where they kind of try and stop a shoplifting, and of course it starts to escalate very quickly with the shop owner pulling out a shotgun, and then of course the anti-vigilante task force turns up and intervenes, and Soledad ends up getting arrested, and it starts a sort of mini riot, which I obviously is very reminiscent of things going on now. But it's interesting how, in one sense, the community in that moment turns on each other for a few seconds, but then when there's a bigger threat, they unite and they're very much kind of, no, actually, these guys are the enemy. And I really liked that, because those kids, the kids who are kind of doing the shoplifting, they don't want any authority figures, and they especially don't want sort of the Nazi cops coming in and kind of doing what they're doing.
But the shop owner, he doesn't want these,
he doesn't want to be robbed by
him, and yeah.
Sorry, allergies.
The poor, sort of. I think her name's Angela, right? I'm pretty sure it's Angela. And her aunt.
the young kid, yeah. Sorry, yeah.
And they're just in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yes, I mean, I think it just turns out that there's kind of
You just disappeared.
No, it's all right. I'm here. I just had to blow my nose, and I didn't want to do it again. Thanks, Liz. Way to have my back there. I really appreciate it.
We are very professional.
Cheers, dickhead.
Yeah, I don't think it was very subtle.
Just disappeared for a second. Just one. You couldn't have handled it on your own for just 1 second. But yeah, I really like that scene. I felt that kind of was the key scene for me for the episode, because it's really kind of starting to show the what the anti-vigilante task force is doing, and of course that's got nothing. I mean, yes, once the shop owner pulls out a shotgun, it's vigilantism, right? But it's a bit beyond the scope of
right
the anti-vigilante.
Yeah, I mean, he's not wearing spandex and jumping on rooftops
And I feel that in that scene, the undercurrent of that is, of course, that Andrew is galvanized into I want to be, I want to be like Daredevil. I want to be like my uncle. And I really like it for that. And I genuinely didn't expect the end of the episode to be that they would find Matt and Karen.
Right.
And we still don't know how that happened. I guess we're not necessarily going to find out, either ever or certainly not in this sequence of episodes. But I'm kind of curious in my sort of headcanon as to how they found them. I guess once they start sticking Matt's face everywhere.
Right, yeah. Someone must have seen him. I mean, we may get some explanation, or maybe it was something that you and I both missed. Maybe it was explained.
Yeah. Yeah. But of course, the sort of big deal there is that Karen has captured one of the anti-vigilante task force guys. And that's the kind of cliffhangers of them. But also there's something earlier in that episode I want to talk about, which is Karen's sort of philosophy or morals are edging into an area that is quite dark. Like she talks about Frank Castle and she just says, well, look, at least he's effective.
Well, I mean, I think that Karen, I think it's been established that Karen, is a little darker than Matt in certain ways. Like, if you kind of look back to season 3, you know that she has this sort of relationship with the Punisher. She carries a gun. She's, I think she's willing to go places that Matt isn't.
Yeah.
She's killed. She killed Wesley. So she's,
I'm pretty sure Matt's killed a few people as well on screen. Like in the later fight scenes.
It looks like no. See, I think that they just want to make it look brutal as possible, but he doesn't kill.
I mean, I don't know. It's interesting. So, I've been talking to Hemon about this when we did the Batman podcast in relation to the Joker, and I'm in regards to that character and the no-kill policy in Batman. I'm very much it's absolute bullshit. If you look at the number of people that the Joker's killed, there is no way they would allow him to live. Eventually, someone would put him out. Someone would take him out. And in a way, I felt with that character, they absolutely should. He absolutely should go. Because what do you do with someone who consistently murders 10, 20, 50, 100 people at a time? And I also feel that with Fisk, over time, over period, depending on how long you want to assume that this continuity is going for, how are they letting him live? The easiest thing, and I understand Matt's reasons for doing it, which are I don't want to make a martyr out of him. There's no way. I don't want him to become a martyr. But when you think about it, it's the only argument that makes sense. It's just taking him out. just take him out, and it all ends within a few weeks. Like you're all back to some kind of normal. But again, I completely understand, and it's interesting how that plays out into a lot of like the real life arguments that are going on now. Because I at the beginning of all this stuff, as it was reaching the kind of peaks that's going on, I'm not going to get into specifics, but was very much like, oh God, maybe they just need to kill these people. But I realize, of course, that's quite a horribly dark way to go, and that's someone said to me, oh, you've got to wonder about your own morals if you're thinking that. And it's just like, actually, yeah, you're completely right.
And Matt is like, he's a devout Catholic, like, he doesn't, he doesn't kill.
I again, though, within the context, within the fictional framework of these characters, of characters like the Joker, of characters like this, do you think it makes sense that they're allowed to just live?
Well, sure. So, I mean, you're asking me. I think, the logical thing to do is just kill him. But this is comics. It's the only way that these,
Oh no, I get that.
Things, these stories go on.
But within the context
to have such a strong aversion to murder that he would rather allow the carnage to continue than actually commit the act himself.
Because I think it's something that increasingly as a society we really struggle with is like there's a certain amount. It's like, well, are you doing this for justice or are you doing it for revenge? And I think that's an argument that comics always plays out really well and really interestingly. And I admit there's times when I thought, in real life, no, revenge. And actually now as I'm getting older, I'm starting to think, oh, actually, no, it's better just for, you want to see justice. But I'm not sure it'll matter with Fisk. I think, we've seen what happens when he goes to prison.
Well, sure. Yeah, exactly. I mean, and they, I think they even touch upon that in the show. I think it might have been like, one of the conversations with the governor, who's like, well, nobody's really going to stop this guy.
Yeah, and that was in the sort of following episode. Shout out to Lily Taylor, who I haven't seen in anything in a while, and it was great to see her coming in. It's interesting to have her as a counterpoint to Matthew Lillard's character, because they're both children of the 90s. They're both actors who really exploded in the 90s and were kind of everywhere, although I'm not sure they ever starred together in anything. Whereas I think Matthew Lillard was more of a darling of the kind of sort of splashier, more commercial Hollywood movies like Scream and Hackers and things like that. Lily Taylor was very much the indie darling who did, so many good performances. And it was great that the show is bringing back those actors to kind of although Lillard's been around, he's been doing stuff in the last few years. Lily Taylor, I don't remember seeing anything for a while. But it was great to see her and her kind of total, like the honesty in which she approaches it, where she's like, yeah, we've let you get away with this because it seems popular with voters, which was probably one of the most worrying things for me, because it's just like, oh yeah, it's popular, so you can
go on then.
It's just like you could, be as Nazi as possible, because it's like people seem to like it. It's just like, what does that say about the society you're living in? Right,
but so it's only too far for her when the ships start, sinking in the harbor.
Yeah, and it's interesting that kind of Mr. Charles doesn't intervene at that point once she comes in, although he appears later, as we know. But and the thing we're really kind of building to in this is the court case of is it Jack Duquesne, the swordsman? Yeah. He's a like that guy from where he started in Hawkeye as the character. You kind of were like, nah. Like the stepdad to now. I really want to see him kick ass. Like, I just, I'm really beginning to like him.
Yeah, and like I felt like this was a much more sort of natural integration of Daredevil into the other Disney Plus shows than having like Ms. Marvel's dad in a bank heist episode. Like that felt a little forced to me. Whereas this just felt like, oh, yeah, it's this character from this other show you're already acquainted with, but he feels like he, kind of exists in this show,
And they're totally fucking that guy over. Like, they're just like, they're totally fucking him over. But also we get a glimpse inside the prison, like what's really going on at Red Hook, which is this kind of off-grid prison for vigilantes and anyone else Fisk doesn't like.
I really liked that. Basically the Kirsten's visit, with the goggles on, and the way that ends up working out just fine for Matt, to retrace her steps. When she's like, well, I couldn't see anything. Like, I can work with that. Yeah. I thought it was really clever.
And also, like, it's interesting because she would, that's the first time they've been together in ages. Kirsten and Matt. She still thinks Matt's dead. No one will tell her.
Yeah, you got to feel bad for her. She's got the the task force busting up her office.
Yeah. But no one will tell her. Like, you do think that he would have told Cherry, oh, by the way, just tell her I'm okay. She just thinks he's dead.
Right.
But I guess in a way, if she
Karen tells her otherwise. I mean,
if she thinks he's dead, she can't tell any lies when asked. It's right. Like, no, I thought he was dead. Now I think though it's interesting because Matt's blind, but Kirsten isn't, and I think there's even being slightly pissed. There's no way she would not have figured out that's Matt.
Well, he was using his growly, Christopher Nolan Batman
voice. He said that's the first time when he started doing the show way back when, they very much resisted and told him, like, don't mess with the accent, do not do a voice. And he said that when he came to this scene, he was like, I've got to do it because there's no way she won't figure out it's me.
Right.
But I quite like that. It's nice to see them together again. I also like the idea of, as you say, like using what she heard rather than what she saw as a kind of jumping off point to get into the prison. And they've got help. We totally fucked this, Liz, because we forgot to say that, of course, the cliffhanger that we left episode 2 on was
that basically the task force person that they managed to kidnap was like the only nice, task force guy of the bunch who wanted to help resist and, was like, here, take my key card. It's only good until midnight tonight. Hope it helps you out. And it does.
Yeah. I found that scene really rousing. I liked that big action sequence. It's incredibly well staged. And as you say, incredibly brutal. And just a lot of fun. And also finally getting Jack DeCane out of the cage and letting him kind of really
do the sword fighting thing, which was very cool.
Because he's already like we get the sham trial, which was everyone knows how that trial was going to turn out.
Right.
It's like why are you even bothering to watch this? Right. You know there's no way they're letting this guy out, right?
Right.
And it's just the three very corrupt judges. I kind of hope they get theirs at some point. but everyone is kind of bending to Fisk's will, and that kind of makes me angry. But there's, you get that big escape from the prison, which sends Fisk into a spiral of anger. Incredibly pleasing to see. Yeah, I mean, I like the fact, and I also like the idea of that. There is very much now you feel like, oh yeah, the resistance is building properly. Like,
right,
they're together. They could be a team. But also, once you get into the next episode, I'm shocked.
Wait, so actually,
go on.
Before you go there, it actually during the escape scene? And I can't remember, like I said, a lot of the order of events is like, kind of jumbled for me. But was it during that escape scene that you see the Northern Star be blown up with with all of the the men who Mr. Charles had brought on?
Yeah. They're for it the moment Powell says, no, you've got to stay on the ship until, right, because they're like, look, we're done with the work, we just want to go home.
Yeah.
And that they're for it,
right,
like absolutely for it. But yeah, and that's the kind of big ending, and again, it's another terrorist incident that gets pinned on Matt Murdock or on Daredevil. So those kind of things are piling up, and it's that interesting thing about, I guess, a well-organized conspiracy where so much stuff is building up against the heroes that even if it all gets solved tomorrow, how are they ever going to unpick the mess of like, right, oh yeah, but then he blew this up, he sunk the ship and then he blew it up later on. Like, there's still going to be a lot of lingering questions there that I think are going to be hard to resolve for Matt. So I'm not sure I see this season ending anywhere other than him still on the run, especially since that now he's doing all the press for the show. He's still got the beard. Like, he's got like the full
right, yeah,
the full
beard. I don't know, because I mean there's so much buildup, that's been happening, and if this really is only an 8-episode season, I mean there's a lot on the table, and we know there's a lot more stuff to come too. We haven't even seen Jessica Jones yet.
It's true. It'd be a bit annoying if they only bring her in right at the end. I mean, and also I'm still holding out hope for Foggy,
big
time. Luke Cage and
Danny Rand,
Iron Fist, Danny Rand. So I'm kind of hoping that stuff will kind of come to fruition before, and we'll get like a Defenders. Like season 3 will be more. We know we're
going to have like a season 3. They've already announced there's going to be a season 3.
I think they're shooting it right now. Like it's happening now. So I'm curious to see where this one ends up. I do have to give just a brief kind of, again, in watching like a lot of the press material recently and looking at Vince D'Onofrio, how he looks now versus how he looks and acts and moves and talks in the show, there is an incredible world of difference there, and it really is acting without being too it's not in a pretentious way, but it really is acting. Like, there really is a massive distance, whereas you feel it's an easier leap to look at Charlie Cox and go, oh yeah, Daredevil, right, or Deborah Ann Wall and go, oh, Karen Page, like you can, the connective tissue is already there. There's nothing when I look at Vince D'Onofrio, and then look at Kingpin, yeah. There's like it's a complete physical transformation, vocal transformation. I think that's really incredible. So you always have to shout that acting. But also another person I've got to shout out to is Bullseye, the guy playing Bullseye, Wilson.
He's been fantastic this season. Yeah. I have to say, because like, I mean, I liked him in season 3, but I think he's actually better here already. I think so far, I've been really compelled by him. Yeah. And I think the action scenes with him have been really terrific.
And it's one of those action scenes that opens episode 4 rather. That's just incredibly impressive. So we see, Bullseye making his breakfast. He's
it's very like to me, even though like there's obvious differences, but it was almost a little bit like Welcome Back, Frank. Where he lives in the apartment building, and he's like, oh, that nice boy next door,
And he goes into the diner and he orders his milkshake, and then he kind of dobs himself into the police.
Well, I mean, he says he's dobbing the Punisher in, which is even better. He's like, oh, yep, it's him. Oh, yep, he's got a gun. Better get down here. And he just waits for them to show up,
I loved that phone call moment. I thought that was great. And the moment with the guy with the little dog was...
Right, yeah, he's like, dogs in restaurants are unsanitary.
I love that. And I'm one of the good guys. It's
like, yeah, and then and some of the kills were so cool. Like, the first, with like the toothpick through a straw.
Yeah.
He uses a lobster. It's
the lobster stuff was great. I really...
The lobster was fine.
Yeah. Was fine.
Yeah. You saw him crawling around on the floor afterwards,
But I like that stuff is where the series for me suddenly really lurched into proper comic book territory.
Right.
Like it's like,
in a great way. So, yeah.
Which is an interesting tone for this show to strike. But I feel that whenever Bullseye is on screen, it lurches into comic book territory. Like you've got the super heightened lighting that starts to occur whenever he's kind of, there's a sort of moment of mental imbalance. And I am 100% here for his transformation into the anti-hero, because I feel that that is something they've resisted in the comics with Bullseye, to the best of my knowledge. Is they've never tried to make him the good guy, or even for a moment. He's always been a massive arsehole.
Well, which I think that he still is in the show. In fact, a massive asshole.
Sure, yeah.
And he is also going about this whole hero thing probably not the right way, because he's just murdering everyone in sight, to accomplish his jabs at Fisk.
But I wonder how Karen will feel about that, given her feelings around Frank. Like, will she be kind of? I kind of think deep down she's going to be all, well, not even that deep down. She's going to be all for it,
Well, yeah, she looks the other way, for Frank in that same department. But I don't know that Bullseye's motivations are the same as Frank Castle's.
Yeah. It's so strange. Like, is he trying to atone? Well, you don't get the sense that he's trying to atone for something, do you?
I mean, he goes to the church and he says he wants absolution. Yeah. So I think in his own weird way, he kind of does, but I think he also, underneath, Frank's, underlying all of his motivations is a sense of justice, whereas Bullseye, I think it's really revenge, and his own kind of sick, like, belief that, okay, all I have to do to, make up for everything is get rid of Fisk and kill everyone who, you know, works for him, everyone in his circle. And that makes me one of the good guys. But, you know, it's you know, I think it's kind of still a far cry from, you know, wanting to seek actual justice.
Yeah. Which will make it even more interesting if it does turn out that Foggy is alive. You know, because then what do you do? If you're not actually guilty of the crime you're supposedly guilty for, then what do you do? But, you know, you're now guilty of about 720 other crimes.
Right.
You know. But, yeah, it's kind of... it was a great action sequence, a great way to kick off the episode. And it's kind of capped off nicely by the end of the episode where he has to face off against, or not the end of the episode, rather, the sort of midpoint of the episode where he has to face off against Matt again in the apartment. Great use for CD.
Yeah. Yeah, and I thought it was interesting. Like he's you know, still listening to CDs on a Walkman.
Yeah.
You know.
They're making a comeback, Liz. Do you not know this?
Well, yeah, no, I know. Like, you know, it is actually kind of hipper and cooler these days, but
I really liked. I liked the kind of whole Bullseye stuff, and I think he's going to be one of the strongest points of this whole season because it very much pops. You know, the show starts to pop and fizz a bit more when he's on screen.
Yeah.
And of course, we're now building up to the big boxing match, which is Fisk versus an actual heavyweight champion. And the reasons for it become apparent is that Fisk quite rightly thinks that Bullseye is going to turn up there and, you know, he's going to get a chance to kill him. It's not quite how it goes down.
No.
I really like that whole sequence as well. Genuinely though, like you really see how vicious Fisk is. It's just absolutely that boxing match.
Oh yeah, I mean
horrible.
It was so it was, you know, it was, you know, and I thought that, you know, again, it was like such a clever bit of directing. You know, it's like you know, that felt more horrible than watching Bullseye kill, you know, however many, you know, guards that he kills over the sum total of the episode.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, you know, it's really visceral, you know, fight. And Fisk, of course, is wearing all white as he does, and his, you know, all the blood splattering all over him. You know, you could just see so vividly.
I think that and he pretty much kills that guy. It's not really, obviously, you don't have time to check it out at the end.
Right.
But I'm pretty sure that guy is if not dead, then he's certainly going to spend the rest of his life in a wheelchair, which is kind of, it's really, you see him lying there sort of twitching at the end, and it's just horrible.
Right, and the crowd, yeah, I mean, you see, like, you know, these harrowing looks on the faces of the crowd until
and even
the end, and then
his staff, his staff are like, and Daniel is like, yeah, okay, like this is a bit.
Right.
You know,
but then everyone's kind of like, oh, like it's time to cheer, you know, like they you know, they make it a triumphant moment again, you know, after they wheel the guy away.
And that again, I think is something that needs kind of addressing in the show, because that perfectly illustrates, you know, what the governor was saying, where it's just like, oh, it seems popular with voters. And then that's that encapsulated right there, and that is always the more worrying thing with me is the degree to which people will let this sort of stuff happen, you know, and the moral degree to which, although you know, I was just talking about.
You can see that they're horrified, but then they kind of go along with it, and. Speaking of the governor, at the same time as the, you know, or kind of obviously right, you know, sort of shortly before the fight is meant to happen, the governor meets with Vanessa, who Fisk, you know, has told, I don't want you there, you know, you've got to leave. It's too dangerous for you to be there. And she's unhappy with that decision. And she has a meeting with the governor, you know, where the governor essentially tells her, like, I don't want to back your husband, but I'd back him if if it's you.
And of course, it's an interesting thing because she's just as bad.
The governor points out, like, you could have done all this by yourself. You actually didn't need him, to accomplish all these things.
Yeah.
So, why did you? And, and that the reason is because she loves him and they are as bad as each other. They are made for each other. They're cut from the same cloth.
It's a bizarre relationship, theirs, increasingly, especially in the show. Like, I just can't even begin to fathom what they really see in each other.
Really? I think they're made for each other. I think that
no, but I can't, it just shocks me that they're made for each other.
Like, I think it's so compelling, their relationship.
I know in the comics and things, she's tried to have him killed at various stages, and
I think in the comics they've, from the beginning they went in a different direction with her character. She would, generally be bummed out that he was the kingpin, and wanted him to spend time with her instead, and there would be long periods where he would send her away, and I think the direction they've gone with her in the show is, that actually they're, there's a reason that they're, so compatible.
I mean, given where she ends up at the end of this episode, I'm not I don't necessarily feel bad for that. Sorry, someone's just driving down my street, blasting out their car stereo, and I'm just hoping that's not coming through on the podcast. I don't necessarily. I mean, should we talk about what happens in
of course. I mean, this was the big shocker of, like, the whole season so far. So, as Fisk predicted, Bullseye is there. He's there to take out the task force and,
take out
Fisk very publicly.
And decides to, obviously, Vanessa starts shooting at him and does wound him.
Well, Vanessa shows up when Fisk asks her not to, and he almost, like, kind of gets thrown off his game during the fight when he sees her.
And it's interesting at that point he chooses a sort of heavy display of violence, a much more aggressive violence against this boxer, because I then couldn't decide was he doing that to end the fight more quickly, because it was only supposed to go 3 rounds anyway. Was he doing it to end the fight more quickly, or was he doing it as a sort of chest pumping display in front of Vanessa because he felt she'd enjoy it? It's
I think you're probably more like, I think it's probably more likely that he wanted to just end the fight and get her out of there. But also, perhaps as, like, he was, like, so upset by the fact that she was there and she was in harm's way, that it brought out that, real, sort of animal side of him, that, sort of unbridled rage, that he sort of lost his control, and probably did, permanently injure or kill the guy.
It's so strange. It must be so depressing to be Wilson Fisk all the time. Like, just the weight of his constant anger and aggression. It's just horrible. I mean, there's only one point where we see him having fun so far throughout all of this, and that's the moment when Jack DeCane gets declared guilty in the sort of kangaroo court.
Yeah, I know, and he laughs and everything. He's like, but yeah, I thought that the whole ending, there, with Vanessa getting up into the ring with him, and Bullseye, taking out the task force and attempting to take out Fisk and Vanessa, and the way that ends, I was like, I was shocked, because you're meant to sort of believe that Fisk stopped him.
Yeah. And also, yeah, what's interesting about that is it's Fisk that ultimately does the damage to Vanessa, because he smashes the sort of glass sculpture that's kind of been thrown at her. Which I mean, I don't know if Bullseye would. I assume he would have hit her with that, but his shot was slightly off because he'd been wounded in the shoulder, and you know, Wilson uses in another moment that really could only come from a comic book. He uses his sort of heavyweight belt that is just one to smash the sculpture, and a fragment gets caught in a skull, as he finds out right at the end. It's also interesting that Matt comes in at that point and fights both the cops and Bullseye, and is kind of then swings Bullseye out of the auditorium, out of the gym, which is, it must be so confusing for him. It's got to be so hard for him to try and, like, how is he balancing this out morally and mentally in his head right now?
It's tough to be Matt.
Yeah, I've got to beat up the guy, but I've also got to save him.
Yeah. Well, you know.
What do I do?
Yeah, it's not easy being Daredevil.
No, and I think that, which of course is one of the great underpinnings of any Daredevil comic. It ain't easy being me. But I thought that was a nice touch, and I again, I'm totally here for the Daredevil Bullseye team up, which again I don't think would be ever part of the comics, and I'm fine with it never being part of the comics.
Well, I'm sure they've had to like team up to some degree or other, but yeah,
I'm kind of all for it here.
And I don't think that Matt would really team up with him in the way that he's teamed up with like Frank even.
No.
Because he can find some sort of like, you know, morality somewhere in Frank that, you know, doesn't exist in Bullseye.
Yeah. So also other interesting things happening on the sidelines. Heather Glenn, Heather is going to become Muse.
Right.
Definitely.
That's what it seems like they're building towards when she's staring at the mask and she's taking it. You know, how does she have the mask? I'd like to know.
Somehow I can't remember. They do. I remember reading somewhere that it was.
I can't remember her keeping the mask, but it could have been something from last season that I just forgot about.
But I think she's going to become Muse. And I was saying to someone on Reddit the other day, you know, I'm totally, you know, it's Heather versus Elektra for the win. Like that's what I want to see. Bring back Elodie Young and
I would love to see Elektra again.
Yeah.
I thought she was so terrific, and like, you know, I mean, she's, you know, my favorite Daredevil leading lady.
And also, like, speaking of Elodie Young, I think she's enough of a, and no offense to her, but she's enough of a sort of lower key actor that they could probably keep it really quiet that they'd got her back. Like, you probably wouldn't know.
Yeah, I mean, I you know, especially if they really tried to keep it on this, you know, on the down low. I actually miss the days when they really were making more of an effort to keep these things on the down low. I know. I mean, it's hard these days because everybody's got like cell phones in their pockets and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like a good like genuine surprise. Speaking of, you know, so the thing with Vanessa, I am very distraught. I love Vanessa. I'm going to be really upset if they actually kill Vanessa, because I think she's one of the most compelling characters on the show. So, and I also think that her relationship with Fisk is one of the most interesting things about the show.
Yeah. It's also one of the things that I find really dark about the show. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I find the whole thing very disturbing. But I'm keen to see where it goes. Disappointed that Jack DeCane is kind of, I'm off. Thanks for rescuing me. I'm out of here.
I think that they used him just the right amount, to be honest.
I think they kind of really want him back on the team.
Well, I think that, you know, there's room for that, but I think that, like, as far as this season's concerned, we've got 4 more episodes to go, and we know we're expecting Jessica Jones. We might be expecting Foggy. I think there's a lot of other stuff going on. So I think, I think for me, it was just the right amount of enjoyment. And like, he's on their side. He's given them access to all of his, many, many billions of dollars, and basically said, you can bring me up sometime, but right now I'm out of here.
I just, I mean, but I do love, like, getting the whole team together for like that's kind of what I want to see. You want to see the whole club get together and going for the rousing win. Although it being Daredevil, I don't think it's going to be a rousing win. Right. I think there'll be a victory of sorts, but it will be very much a Pyrrhic victory, to say the least. But yeah, Heather definitely is heading for bad guy territory.
I agree.
It's I really think that's kind of happening. And of course, Angela is definitely kind of on route to becoming the new White Tiger.
Right. Which, I hope, that she's used sparingly. I think it's nice that they're doing it, but I feel like, having a character that age feels a little out of place in Daredevil. I think, maybe they're building her up to be like a young Avenger or something.
I mean, it could be. I mean, but I also wonder if we're going to end up with a new Defenders team by the end of it. That'll be made up of Jack DeCane and Angela and whomever else. Bullseye. Well, it'd probably be better as a Thunderbolt, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, like, apropos of nothing, she really reminds me of a young Michelle Trachtenberg.
Like yeah, sure. Yeah. But she's a good little actor, and I really liked her kind of in the show so far. So I'm keen to see where this goes. Now, Liz, in other Marvel news, we were kind of someone somewhere online dangled the promise of an Avengers Doomsday trailer for Easter Monday, which didn't materialize. I've been keeping an eye on the Marvel channel all week, and nothing has materialized. Very disappointing. There's been very little Doomsday news, right? I mean,
well, we got a while to go, and like right now, I think they're bigging up Spider-Man.
Yeah, and there is some doubt as to whether or not it will actually still be 18th of December, because now Dune 3 has taken nearly all of the IMAX screens, which really does limit Avengers Doomsday's box office potential. Not by much, but it does.
But enough.
It does fit. And that they're now talking about moving that film maybe a day or so. But the thing is also, it's like, for the people who are going to do, as they're calling it, Dunes Day, this is this year's Barbenheimer. I don't think I could face 6 hours at the cinema, which is really, when you count ads, trailers, and the time between showings, is probably about 8 hours. I don't think I can do that.
No,
personally.
No.
I know which one you'll be seeing first.
Obviously, yeah. I mean, I think I told you I haven't even seen the first two Dunes.
Oh God, no! You definitely should watch those. They're amazing. Like really incredible achievements. And definitely should be like I heartily recommend. If I do get to see, hopefully I'll get to see Dune 3. I'm going to try and get Tony Van Raas back on the podcast, because he's a big Dune head, and he had some really intelligent, interesting things to say about the first Dune in relation to the book, and I'd really like to get him back on. But of course, we are going to be talking about Avengers Doomsday, I'm sure.
But of course,
I don't know when we're going to do that, because it's right in the lead up to Christmas.
Well, I mean, it's it's an important one. I'm sure we'll make time.
Definitely, and again, quite a big year for Marvel. We've still got Vision Quest to come next year. I think that's lined up for Wonder Man season 2, as we talked about last time. Has now been sort of greenlit. People are unhappy about the logo change for Wonder Man. I don't know if you saw that.
I did not see that. What's the problem?
They've altered the logo for Wonder Man to a much more boring kind of very Marvel-esque logo. And it's just like,
oh boy.
So yeah, it's not so much Wonder Man as Wonder Where All Your Serifs went. But I'm trying to think if there's any more kind of Marvel news we kind of need to talk about before we wrap up. Anything from your end? You got anything you want to mention? No.
No.
I was kind of hoping you'd pull something out there, Liz. I was really hoping for. So yeah, I mean,
okay, all right, fine. I take it all back. There has been a trailer for the Punisher One Last Kill.
Yes, so One Last Kill. Did you watch the trailer? I take it.
Yeah.
Right.
Did you?
Interesting trailer. Yeah. I really liked it. Interesting trailer. It's gonna go back to Frank's origins from the looks of it. I don't know who this other guy is that's in the trailer. Nope. It looks like an old army buddy or an old army enemy. I'll be curious to see what happens there. But again, what's the transformation for Frank Castle? Because we've got to kind of, I guess, see something that's going to then allow him to be part of the Spider-Man cinematic kind of end of things. So I don't know. It's I'm interested to see what happens in that. He doesn't seem to be any less bloodthirsty when you see him in that Spider-Man trailer. So I don't know if there will be.
They're going to be handling him with a more comedic tone,
Yeah.
And obviously he's probably not going to be, brutally sort of, taking out bad guys like in the same way as the same visceral way you see him do in Daredevil or his the previous Punisher series.
He apparently, like, him and Tom Holland apparently really get on. Like they're very friendly, and he really likes Tom Holland from what I understand. So it'll be interesting to see how that relationship plays out on screen. I'm really excited for Brand New Day. I think that's going to be the high point. I'm almost more excited for that than I am for Doomsday.
Really?
Yeah, a little bit. Okay. But it might also be that we've seen a bit more of Spider-Man, and it doesn't. I mean, it has that weird weight of expectation. Like the trailer, I think, has become the first one to be viewed 1 billion times, which is just insane. It's absolutely insane. But I think that also speaks to the level of forensic, real and imagined kind of
Easter egg hunting.
Easter egg hunting that people have gone on. Which is not necessarily. I don't mind talking about it with you on shows like this, but I'm not sure I want to spend my time doing it.
Well, I mean, you don't need to, because there's plenty of other people to do it for you.
So maybe next time we talk, if there's been any more information there, we'll sort of pass that information, and we'll try and give you as a lowdown on what we think is going to be happening. But the One Last Kill trailer looks great. I'm excited about that.
I'm super excited about it. I love the Punisher. I'm so happy that he's getting his own thing, and that his he's appearing in these other things like Daredevil and Spider-Man.
Yeah. It seems to be like about an hour long special. Funny enough, I was watching an interview with Vincent D'Onofrio, and he was saying that apparently that Marvel don't yet have all the rights they need for his character. So I assume what he's talking about there is appearing in, like, he couldn't be in
Spider-Man.
Brand Down, he couldn't be in Spider-Man, yeah. Because of the Sony thing. Because Daredevil and Kingpin were part of the. Even though did he start out as a Spider-Man villain?
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, well, he's constantly in Spider-Man comics.
Yeah.
You know, whether he started there or not is actually a good question. I can't really remember.
I don't remember,
but I feel like he probably did.
I think it just became a much more notable character and was better used in Daredevil comics.
Yeah.
So, Liz, just before we go, anything you're watching or reading that you want to tell people about that you're enjoying, comics or film wise?
I've been reading some manga. Yeah, like, a couple of manga series. Like, my one of my colleagues that I work with is a big manga and anime fan, and she's kind of put me onto some interesting books. Right now, I'm reading one called "The Summer Hikaru Died." Very, very eerie, very very, very good. Frustratingly, it's like still being written. So they've done like a series of like a first season of the anime, and the books are up to like volume 6. But after that, it's still being created. So
in fact, I'm saying I heard of it. I think it was you that told me about it in like one of our
I'm really enjoying it. It's really good. How about yourself?
So I just finished reading. I'm still catching up with stuff from sort of mid to late last year. I've just finished reading Godzilla versus the Marvel Universe, which I really enjoyed. Like, surprisingly, I keep saying crossover comics aren't really for me, but I guess they kind of are. And Godzilla, there'll be a review on the site by the time, well, I think next week. I think Tuesday is scheduled for. And it was a great kind of evocation of different periods of Marvel, some of which I know about, some of which I don't, because obviously not being a big Marvel head. And also it brings in the lore, manages to bring in lore from both universes really organically and really well. Really good run of issues that tell 5 separate stories, but also tell one story in a way. And with the best one being, surprisingly, I'm not really a big fan of Thor comics. I don't find them that accessible for me. I think partly because of the way the language is used.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. That's probably why I hate it so much, Liz. No, I don't hate it at all. But the best issue of the sort of 5 in the book was definitely the Thor issue, and especially
I think that one was written by Jason Aaron, if I remember right.
With art by Aaron Kuda, and definitely worth looking at. And I've also just read Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, Old School, New School, which was like the prequel series that span out of the animation show on Disney Plus, and that was a lot of fun. I've kind of read a lot of stuff that's sort of geared towards YA audiences lately, not on purpose, just that just is just the way it turned out, and very much enjoying that. And Blade Red Band, will we ever get the Blade movie? Who knows?
Doesn't look good, but hey, there's time, I guess.
But Brian Edward Hill is still doing good stuff, putting Blade comics out there. Right, guys, you can follow us on the usual places. Blue Sky, especially, is where I put most of my stuff. Threads, Facebook, Instagram. Liz, you can follow this on somewhere. I don't even know what socials Liz is on anymore. But don't worry, she'll be back here in just a couple of weeks to talk about the remaining episodes of Daredevil. And the question is, will the ending be so big that we'll be able to contain our excitement and talk about it episode by episode?
I don't know. It is. It's ramping up real fast.
Liz, thanks very much for doing this again. I really appreciate you giving up some of your time on your Saturday evening and coming to talk about Daredevil. Look forward to seeing you in a few weeks. But that's it from us, guys. We are out of here. Bye-bye.
Bye.